Today, we're going to look at the fundamentalist modernist controversy and talk about a specific area that this controversy really manifested itself. We're going to look particularly at the Scopes Monkey trial. The Scopes Monkey trial is taught in public schools and it's kind of taught everywhere as almost a Bryan versus Darrow, and that's all we focus on is William Jennings Bryan really being that great orator and being able to really strongly argue. And then the other side that most public schools take from that is that evolution is okay to teach in schools, that you just can't only teach the Bible. And it's funny because the more you look at the Scopes Monkey trial, the more you look at this modernist movement, you see just absolutely kind of how ridiculous the whole Scopes Monkey trial was and how it really worked against the modernist movement, or how it should have worked against the modernist movement, to just reveal some of the flaws that were deeply ingrained in their philosophy and their theology, their doctrine, and their thinking. So, the Scopes Monkey trial comes out of this anthropology movement that's associated with modernist, who had split from fundamentalist. All these new forms of study, they were really big into education, not just the Bible, not the inerrancy of God, but what can man do? What can man prove? How can he advance himself? And so out of that comes this Darwinian train of thought, this survival of the fittest, this we evolved from something to something to something to something, not just a 7-day creationist. There has to be more to it. It has to be more scientific. We can't just accept what the Bible says. And so out of this comes this Scopes Monkey trial where it's actually embarrassing. It was a substitute teacher. It wasn't even a teacher who was constantly in the schools. It wasn't an established professor. It was a substitute teacher who was teaching this. Lawyers ran with it. And by today, it's embarrassing standards. If you look at Darwinian logic and Darwinian evolution associated with anthropology at the time, it basically assumed that whites were at the top. Like, we all evolved, but the goal was to evolve to become a white male. And essentially, we know today that that's flawed. The fundamentalists pretty much knew from the beginning that was flawed. But just to see at the base of the Scopes Monkey trial what modernists were trying to argue is pretty embarrassing. Out of this comes not just the Scopes Monkey trial, though. It comes in passages of legislature like Buck versus Bell in 1927, where we were sterilizing people that we didn't believe were genetically pure enough or genetically worthy to reproduce. And in my mind, that kind of takes us back to like a Nazi Germany type mindset, which in itself is dangerous, because who is man to decide other flawed men's worth? Like, there's no hierarchy of lost. Lost is just lost. So the social gospel and its dangers presented by the modernist are that you do take your mind off of that theology. You do take your mind off of the Bible and its inerrancy and God and its purpose, and you focus more on yourself. You focus on what you can do as if there's something you could possibly do to earn grace, which takes us all the way back to Luther, and that grace is by faith alone. It's not found in what's popular. It's not found in what you can do. It's purely found in Jesus, and to alter that is ultimately